Insightful sources about this meeting between Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky in 2025. And, it seems like there's like a lot more going on here than just, some awkward handshakes. We're talking international relations, like potential shifts in global power, and even like some pretty wild
It's like we're
accusations.
watching the aftershocks of the Russia-Ukraine war kind of play out, but, on a global stage.
Yeah.
It's this meeting's just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Yeah.
Okay. So let's start piecing this puzzle together then.
Yeah.
We know the Russia-Ukraine war has, been dragging on for 3 years now, and Trump, now back in office, he called this meeting with Zelensky, promising to finally, broker peace. But reading through these sources, it seems like his approach is like drastically different from, the U.S. and Europe's previous commitment to supporting Ukraine until it, regained all its lost territory.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is how Trump seems to be operating from a completely different playbook. He's not interested in maintaining the status quo or upholding those, traditional alliances. It seems like he's looking for a deal and he's not afraid to, ruffle some feathers to get it.
And that leads us to this controversial minerals deal he proposed. Essentially, Trump wants Ukraine to hand over 50% of its natural resource revenue to the U.S. in exchange for protection. And some of these sources are like calling this economic colonization, even comparing it to, the practices of the East India Company.
Yeah, I see that. Think of it like powerful nations like the East India Company back in the day. They would, exert economic control over weaker ones. They're extracting resources without, granting full political independence.
Yeah.
So when these sources use the term economic colonization, they're drawing those parallels to those historical situations where one country benefits at the expense of another's autonomy.
Right. And Zelensky is definitely not on board with this deal. He flat out refused to sign it, arguing it would, cripple Ukraine for generations. He even brought up the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, where Russia, the U.S., and the U.K. vowed to protect Ukraine after it gave up its nuclear arsenal. And what really struck me was how Zelensky used this historical context to highlight, like, the irony, almost the hypocrisy of Trump's proposal.
Yeah, it's a brilliant move on Zelensky's part. He's reminding everyone that Ukraine already made this huge sacrifice for global security by giving up its nuclear weapons, and now it's being asked to make another one. But this time it's for America's economic benefit.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, the meeting did not end well. The sources describe, this heated exchange with Trump resorting to personal attacks, and just dismissing Zelensky's concerns. And ultimately, they didn't sign the deal, and the food prepared for them was left like totally untouched.
It's that visual of the untouched food, I think. It's powerful. It speaks to a deeper failure to connect on a human level. In many cultures, sharing a meal is like a sign of trust and goodwill. So, this symbolic act, leaving the food untouched, emphasizes the severity of, the diplomatic breakdown between them.
Right. And the fallout from this meeting has been, pretty significant. European leaders rallied around Zelensky, condemning Trump's behavior. Zelensky even posted a sarcastic thank you tweet to America, which really highlights how this incident has, shifted international sentiment.
It's like this meeting exposed a growing rift between the U.S. and its traditional allies, right?
Right.
This incident kind of accelerated a shift that was, already happening, beneath the surface.
Right, right. Now, moving beyond this specific meeting, let's explore how, Trump's approach to foreign policy kind of fits into this larger geopolitical puzzle. These sources describe it as bullying diplomacy, pointing to other examples like his comments about buying Greenland, controlling the Panama Canal, and even colonizing Canada.
It's true that the bullying diplomacy label might, resonate with some, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, others argue it's like an oversimplification of, a complex strategy. They say Trump is, actually a shrewd negotiator who understands, how to leverage power and project strength on the world stage.
So we have these two very different interpretations of Trump's actions. Is he a bully who's like alienating allies and, destabilizing the global order? Or is he a master strategist playing 4D chess, while everyone else is like struggling with checkers?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to really understand the answer, we need to dig deeper into his actions and their consequences.
Right.
Mm.
And one of the most controversial actions he's taken is renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Mm.
What are the implications of a move like that?
I mean, this goes beyond just, rhetoric, right? Renaming established geographical features like that. It has implications for, international law, maritime boundaries, even things like, mapping and navigation. It demonstrates a disregard for, international norms and a willingness to, unilaterally assert American dominance, which is, definitely caused concern among, other countries.
Speaking of causing concern, there's another layer to this deep dive that we need to address: the accusations that Trump might be a Russian agent.
Right, right. Now we're stepping into murky waters here. It's important to be cautious with these accusations because they rely heavily on, speculation and circumstantial evidence. But the sources do, present a timeline of Trump's past dealings with Russia, starting with his first marriage in 1977 to Ivana Zelnichkova, a Czech model.
And some of these sources allege that this marriage is when, Trump first came on the radar of Russian intelligence. They even claim he was given a code name, Krasnov.
Yeah. There's also this intriguing anecdote about Trump buying 200 television sets from a suspected KGB agent for his um, Grand Hyatt New York hotel.
Yeah.
On the surface, it seems like a random detail.
Yeah.
But, the sources suggest it could point to, deeper connections and potential financial ties to Russia.
They even go so far as to claim that during a 1987 trip to Moscow and St. Petersburg, Trump was like showered with praise by the KGB and encouraged to enter politics. It's like something out of spy thriller.
It definitely adds fuel to the fire of speculation.
Yeah.
But even if we set aside, these agent accusations, Trump's actions as president, like, his praise of Putin, his stance on the Ukraine war, his attempts to undermine NATO, it's all raised serious questions about, his motivations and loyalties.
So are these accusations credible? Is it possible that Trump is or has been, compromised by Russia?
That's a question we may never have a definitive answer to, but regardless of whether there's, concrete proof of him, like being a Russian agent, his actions have undoubtedly, created a crisis of confidence, both domestically and internationally.
It feels like we're only scratching the surface of this, this complex web of like international relations and potential power shifts. We've gone from a tense meeting in 2025 all the way back to the 1970s. Where do we even go from here?
Well, I think the next step is to, look at the bigger picture. If Trump's actions are, indeed pushing the world towards a multipolar system where power is, distributed among several nations rather than concentrated in one, we need to understand what that new world might look like, and that's what we'll delve into in the next part of this deep dive.
All right, so we've established that the world might be shifting towards this multipolar system. What does that even mean? Like, paint a picture for me. What could that world actually look like?
Well, it's helpful to look back at history, right? Think about the rise and fall of empires. The Roman Empire, the British Empire, even like the United States' rise to global dominance. Those were all periods of transition where the old order crumbled and a new one emerged. We might be, witnessing something similar happening right now.
So instead of one superpower calling all the shots, we'd see, power distributed among several major players.
Exactly, yeah. It wouldn't just be about the U.S. anymore. We could see regional blocs like, the European Union, the African Union, or even a new Asian alliance taking on, more prominent roles in global affairs.
You mentioned earlier that countries like China and India are, stepping onto the world stage. Could we realistically see them as global leaders in this, new order?
Oh, it's definitely a possibility. China has been, steadily growing its economic and military influence for decades, and India, with its huge population and strategic location, is also becoming a force to be reckoned with.
But what would that mean for everyday people? How would this new world order with all these different power centers impact our lives?
Well, there are a few potential scenarios. One possibility is increased competition and conflict as these different power blocks vie for influence and resources. We might see a rise in proxy wars, economic sanctions, and even cyber attacks.
That sounds a little unsettling. Are there any like potential upsides to this multipolar world?
Oh, absolutely. A multipolar system could also lead to, more balance and cooperation. Without like a single dominant power, dictating the terms, countries might be, forced to work together to solve, shared problems like climate change, pandemics, and global economic instability.
So it's not necessarily like all doom and gloom. There's potential for positive change as well.
Precisely. Yeah. History is full of twists and turns. It's impossible to predict the future with certainty. But what we can do is, analyze the forces at play, understand the potential consequences, and be prepared to adapt to this, rapidly changing world.
Okay. So we've explored this potential, new world order, but there's still this like lingering question about, Trump's actions and motivations. Let's circle back to those accusations of him being, a Russian agent.
Right, right. Remember, we're dealing with a lot of, speculation and circumstantial evidence here. But the sources, do raise some valid points. They point to Trump's, long history of business dealings with Russia, his repeated praise of Putin, and his decisions that, seem to benefit Russia at the expense of American interests.
There's that, alleged codename Krasnov, the story about, the 200 television sets, and even claims that, he was cultivated by the KGB during his trips to Russia back in the 80s.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. And while it's impossible to say for sure whether these accusations are true, they do cast a shadow over, his presidency and his foreign policy decisions.
Even if we assume, like, for the sake of argument, that Trump isn't a literal agent working for, the Kremlin, his behavior still raises some, like, serious questions about his judgment and his loyalties.
Yeah. Absolutely. Is he simply naive? Is he being like manipulated, or does he genuinely believe that, aligning with Russia is like in America's best interest? It's difficult to say definitively, right? But his actions have certainly created a sense of, unease and distrust, both among the American public and, on the international stage.
And it's not just, the Russia issue, right?
Yeah.
His entire approach to like foreign policy seems, erratic and unpredictable. He insults allies, threatens countries with, military action, and makes these like grand pronouncements that seem more like, the ramblings of a reality TV star than, the carefully considered policies of like a world leader.
A lot of analysts describe his style as, transactional and self-serving. He seems, more focused on like striking deals, projecting an image of strength and promoting his own brand than on, advancing any like coherent foreign policy agenda.
And that that unpredictability is what makes the current situation so concerning. No one knows what he's going to do next, which makes it like incredibly difficult to, build trust or forge lasting agreements on, the global stage.
It's like he's playing this high-stakes game of poker, but the chips are, countries, and the stakes are like the future of, global stability. And the most unsettling part is he might not even realize he's playing a game. He might genuinely believe he's acting in, America's best interests, even if his actions are like ultimately undermining its standing in the world.
So we have a potential new world order, emerging, a U.S. president whose actions and motivations are like constantly being questioned, and, a global landscape like teetering on the brink of chaos. It feels a bit overwhelming, to be honest. Where do we even like begin to make sense of all this?
Well, I think the first step is to, acknowledge the complexity of the situation. We're not dealing with, simple problems or easy solutions. And as individuals, it's easy to feel powerless in the face of these like global forces.
So what can we do? How can we like navigate this, increasingly complex and uncertain world?
Well, one of the most important things we can do is, stay informed, right?
Yeah.
We need to be like critical consumers of information, understand, our own biases, and seek out diverse perspectives. We can't just passively absorb whatever, news and opinions are being thrown at us. We need to be active participants in, shaping our understanding of the world.
That makes sense. We need to be, more discerning about what we believe and be willing to challenge our own assumptions. What else?
We also need to like build bridges, not walls. We need to connect with people from different cultures, backgrounds, and viewpoints. We need to cultivate understanding, empathy, and a willingness to cooperate. We can't afford to like retreat into our own little bubbles and
Yeah.
ignore the wider world.
Because ultimately, we're all, in this together, right? The
Yeah,
challenges we face, whether it's, climate change, economic inequality, or the threat of global conflict, these are like shared problems that require, collective solutions.
exactly. Yeah, and that brings us to the final and perhaps most important point. We need to be agents of change. We need to speak out against injustice, hold our leaders accountable, and advocate for policies that promote peace, justice, and sustainability.
It's not about, having all the answers or being a superhero. It's about, taking small steps, making, conscious choices, and engaging in meaningful conversations. It's about, recognizing our shared humanity and working together to create a better future. Yeah, it's easy to kind of get caught up in the headlines and, feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of like all the challenges, that we're all facing. But I think you're right. It all comes back to individual action and recognizing that, we can actually make a difference.
It's like that old saying, think globally, act locally,
Mhm.
right? Even small changes in our daily lives, like the choices we make, the conversations we have, it can, contribute to a larger shift in consciousness.
So it's not about like, waiting for some grand solution or relying on our leaders to, fix everything. It's about, taking responsibility and recognizing that change starts with each of us.
Right. And sometimes, those conversations we have, you know, they can be uncomfortable, right? We might have to like, challenge our own deeply held beliefs, confront our own biases and step outside of, our comfort zones. But that's where real growth happens, both individually and collectively.
It strikes me that we often talk about like, all these global issues as if they're like completely separate from our own personal lives. But in reality, like everything's interconnected, right? The choices we make as consumers, the way we, interact with each other, the values we prioritize it all contributes to the kind of world, that we're all creating.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a ripple effect. Each individual action creates like, a ripple that expands outward, influencing others and shaping those larger patterns of, society.
So if we want to see, positive change out there in the world, we need to kind of start by, looking inward, right?
Right.
And examining our own roles in, perpetuating the systems and structures that are, causing all this harm.
And that process of self-reflection, it can be, challenging. It requires honesty, courage, and a willingness to, learn and grow. But it's an essential step in creating a more, just and sustainable world.
Right. All right. So we've talked about, staying informed, connecting with others, and being agents of change. But there's still this like nagging feeling of uncertainty about the future. What can we do to kind of manage that anxiety and, find hope in the midst of all this chaos?
Well, I think it's important to remember that history is not like, linear. There are always, setbacks, challenges, and those like, unexpected twists and turns along the way. But humanity has an incredible capacity for, resilience, for innovation, for compassion.
So we shouldn't, get discouraged by the headlines or allow fear to just, paralyze us.
Exactly, yeah. Throughout history, we've faced, countless crises, and we've always found a way to adapt, to overcome, and to, emerge stronger on the other side. And I believe we have the potential to, do the same today.
And sometimes it's helpful to just kind of zoom out and look at like the bigger picture, right? Is despite all the challenges we face, there are also incredible, advancements happening in, science, technology, and even human consciousness. There's a growing awareness of, our interconnectedness, a recognition that we're all like, part of one global family.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a growing movement of people, around the world who are working towards a more sustainable and equitable future.
Mhm.
And, that gives me hope.
So it's not all doom and gloom. There's reason to be optimistic, to believe that we can create a better future, for ourselves and for generations to come.
And that kind of brings us back to this, deep dive into Trump, Zelensky, and the potential for a new world order, right? This
Yeah.
whole exploration wasn't just about, understanding current events. It was about, empowering you to make informed decisions, to engage in, meaningful action, and to be, an active participant in shaping the world, the world that you want to live in.
So as we, wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final thought. If the actions of leaders like, Trump are like accelerating the shift towards a multipolar world, what role will you play in shaping that, that new world? Will you be a bystander, watching from the sidelines as history unfolds, or will you, step up, raise your voice, and contribute to creating a future that's, more just, more equitable, and more sustainable for everyone? The choice is yours.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another fascinating exploration of all the forces that are shaping our world.
Until then, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay hopeful.